All right. So today we are wrapping up our last two reviewing days for Unit 1 to compute our rational numbers. Okay, if you need to know where to look to review for what we're doing today, in your textbook on chapters 3 and 4, you can find what we're working on. So if you're staying organized like you should be, and if you haven't been organized, I highly suggest you either reach out for help to figure out how to get organized, because that is going to be your key to success as a seventh grader, is keeping all your work organized. Okay, so in your notebook, you should have page 17, we're going to put our foldable review that is going after our review of dividing signed decimals. Okay. If you're at home, you may have been able to print out your foldable. This is just going to show you how you would fold your foldable. Now, if you're just going to be doing the problems in your notebook, that is fine as well. But you would fold it so that on the front sides you see fraction and decimals as your titles. All the problems on the left will be your fractions, and all the problems on the right will be your decimals. And so that you can see each problem individually, you can cut along the dotted lines so that you can focus on what area you're actually wanting help to see from. Okay, and then on the back where it says glue here, put 6 dots of glue. Remember the dot dot does a lot. That will definitely help save your glue and keep it secured in your notebook. Then you would place it on your page 17 of your composition or notebook. Okay, so let's look and open this up. We have fractions on the left side. Okay, so if you notice, the first one's going to be an addition problem. Okay, so we don't need to worry about adding the opposite. So remember, things that you need to remember. We always need to have common denominators. Okay. Okay, so that's what we want to look for. Now, if you don't know how to find your common denominators, list the multiples of both numbers and see what you can find that they have in common. So if I was to list all of my 2's that 2 can go into, I would have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, and 18. So then if I list all the numbers, that 19 is a multiple of 19, 8, 18. So if you look, 18 is our common denominator. So when we do our problem, that's what we need to change it to, right? So I think in my head, okay, so I need to multiply 2 by 9 to get to 18. And whenever I multiply my denominator by, I have to multiply my numerator. And then I'm going to rewrite my problem. Okay, so now I have 3 and 9 18. And then you have an addition with a negative number. And remember, I would multiply 9 by 2, then to me multiply 5 by 2. We have a negative 2 and 10 18. What do we have to link? I have a positive number that I'm adding a negative to it. So that means I'm taking a positive number and decreasing it because that is a negative number after it. So those means they're different signs, so we need to actually subtract them. And now another thing you need to make sure you remember, when you subtract, you have to put your highest value on top. So value on top. Okay, so I normally will do mine vertically, but we can actually keep it horizontally for this. Okay, because it's actually put in the order. On top. Okay. So I can't take my 10 away from 9. So I have to go in and actually do that borrowing. So when I borrow, that means I'm really taking 18 over 18 and adding it to my fraction. So this now becomes a 2. And then I add them. So 9 and 18 is my 27. And it looks funny because it's improper, but it has to be improper so we can actually take away our 2 and 10 18. And now we can subtract. Now remember, you are also not changing your denominator for addition. You can't take and put a 0 on the bottom. So it stays in 18. And I take my 27 minus my 10. That gives me a 17. And 2 minus 2 is 0. Okay? Now, is this going to be a positive or a negative number? Okay. If I had 3 and 9/18 and I needed to go to the left on my number line to decrease 2 and 10/18, that's not enough to put it in the negatives. So I know my answer is actually a positive 17/18. Okay. Maybe if you need to pause this so that you can copy your notes down. Now we're going to go down to a second one. All right. Things you need to remember when we are subtracting. We must add the opposite. We also must have what? Common denominators. We need that to be able to do any type of addition or subtraction. Then once we have done that, we can then follow our integer addition of integer rules. Okay. So first thing I know, I need to go in here and add the opposite. When I go ahead and have my common denominators, I'm going to rewrite it with adding the opposite to make life easier. Okay, so my least common multiple of 2 and 7 is actually 14. So that's what I want my denominator now to be as a 14. So I multiply 2 times 7 and 1 times 7. Okay, don't forget to bring your negative down. It's one of those little jokes I like to say. If you go to the store with your sister, you've got to bring her back. Now this is where our first step of adding the opposite. I'm going to change this to addition. And then look at this one. I'm like, okay, that's a positive. What's the opposite of a positive? A negative. So this is now a negative 5. And then multiply by 2. So you get a 6/14. Now I can follow my addition rules because I added my opposite, I have my common denominators, and now I can follow my rules. So look, I have 2 negatives. That means I decreased twice. So that's your same signs. You're just going to add them and keep the negative because you stayed in the negatives. All right, so we both still have 14 on the bottom. And I can add my 7 and my 6 to make 13. And add my 1 and my 5 to make a 6. So my final answer is a negative 6 and 13/14. Okay, so if you need to, pause this and then fill in your notes. All right, we're going to go down to our third one of multiplication. Okay, you can think of something you know that you have to do when we multiply. What do we have to do these mixed numbers first? We have to turn them in proper. Okay. Another thing I would tell you to try your best to do, I know a lot of students fight trying to having to do this, cross cancel to make simplification easier, or you're reducing easier. All right. Do I need to have common denominators when I multiply? No. So we can go ahead and go straight to what some call the Concord C. You're going to multiply 9 times 1 and then add your 1. So that's 9 times 1 is 9, plus 1 is 10. So I now have a negative 10 ninth times, and then I got to do the same thing to this one. 8 times 2 plus 5, plus 16 plus 5 is 21 eighths. Okay. I really don't want to have to find the simplest form of 210 over 72. That's too much. So I'm going to go ahead and look. What can I cross cancel? Well, I see two even numbers. What goes into every even number? Oops, I forgot my negatives over there. 2 goes into every even number. So if I divide these both by 2, this becomes a 5. If I divide that one by 2, it becomes a 4. Okay, then that makes it a little bit easier. But then I see 9 and 21. Okay, can 9 go into 21? No. I could think, all right, what numbers do I multiply to get 9? Other than 1 and 9. Well, 3 times 3. What do we multiply to get 21? 1, 21, 3, and 7. So the greatest common factor is 3. So if I divide by 3, 9 turns into 3. If I divide 21 by 3, it turns into 7. So now it looks a lot easier. I now just have 5 over 3. Oops, don't forget those negatives. I almost lost my baby sister and left her at the store. Now we can multiply. Okay, 2 negatives. Remember, this first negative means to do the opposite of the second one. What's the opposite of a negative? A positive. Okay, so a positive, and 7 times 5 is 35, and then 12. What's another thing you must always remember to do? Reduce. We must always remember to reduce. Okay, I cannot leave this as an improper fraction. Okay, so I have to think, all right, how many times can 12 go into 35? Well, it can go in twice. So that's a new whole number. And then I'm going to take 35 minus 24, which is 11. And our final answer is 2 and 11 twelfths. Okay, if you need to, pause this so that you can go ahead and finish it up. Okay, division. What do you need to remember about division? Well, remember we have to multiply or use the multiplicative. Inverse. Okay, that's where we can use our keep, change, flip. What else do we need to do? We're going to turn it into a multiplication problem. So once again, we need to make sure that they are improper fractions. We need to make sure we cross cancel. And we always need to make sure we reduce to the simplest form. Okay? We are big boys and girls now, so we have to do all these steps. All right. We have to turn it improper. So 3 times 1 plus 2 is 5/3. Now I'm going to change it to multiplication. And I know my 3 is going to go on top because I'm going to flip that one. 3 times 3 is 9 plus 1 is 10. And then look for cross canceling. This is easy with cross canceling. If you look, you have a 3 here, and across from it, another 3. So this is now a -1, and that's a 1. What about 5 and 10? Well, 5 can go into 5 one time, and 5 can go into 10 twice. Okay? Now, if I am multiplying a positive and a negative, that negative stays. Okay? So 1 times 1 is 1, and 1 times 2 is 2. So we have a negative half. Make sure you get this put into your notes and then check to see if there is any homework assignments to go with this. Make sure you are studying for our unit test that we are taking Wednesday or Thursday, depending on your class period. All right, and we have NWEA in class on Wednesdays and Thursday. All right, if you have any questions, make sure to reach out to your teacher and keep doing your best to stay on top of things. Even though grades are already being finalized, if there is homework you haven't done, I suggest doing it anyways as a good practice to you. Okay? All right, have a great day.